We're rolling. I actually don't know if you can hear me, but I'm here with Matthew Smead, who is part of the Veterans Bridge Home as part of my interview. I'm here behind the camera. So, starting off, question number one. What is your military service story or your personal connection to the armed forces?
So when I entered undergrad at the University of Kentucky back in the day, um, I had always had an interest and a desire in serving in the military, and I learned they had an ROTC program there, which for those that don't know, it's a program where college students can enroll as cadets and go through training to receive a typically a commission in the military, in the Army, for me specifically, as a second lieutenant. That sounded kind of up my alley in terms of what I wanted to do with myself. So I did that. And during that time, I decided to enlist in the Kentucky National Guard because I wanted some enlisted time to basically help make me a better officer down the road. And plus, it was an opportunity to make me choose a job in the military that maybe I wouldn't probably do for my career, but maybe something a little more fast and exciting. So I enlisted as a combat engineer. And,
Oh,
so I would do that for a couple of years before I started having some knee and back problems, and that just kind of nixed all that. So I had to move on. And then, I ended up going in the mental health field, became a licensed therapist, and I've worked in mental health for about the last 20 years. And then I got the opportunity to come to Veterans Bridge Home and basically apply, a career's worth of skills to helping fellow veterans. And again, that just sounded right up my alley.
perfect.
So I've been here ever since.
And that ties directly into the next question, which is what is your specific role here at Veterans Bridge Home, and what does a typical day or week look like for you within the organization?
So I am our care navigation manager. So I kind of oversee um, our efforts within the care navigation program to help connect veterans and their family members, or even active duty service members, to whole health resources with more of an emphasis on mental health, substance abuse resources. And then within that, I run a VA-funded veteran suicide prevention program. So that is my role here. And again, I'm in this role because mental health is my background, with me being a therapist. So
Perfect. Next question. What do you hope people truly understand about your role?
oh,
and
you
where
asked
you
about
fit
day to
into?
day. You asked
Oh, yeah,
about.
that
I
too.
forgot
Yeah.
about that.
No,
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah. So day to day, it can vary. More often than not, I'm at my desk, um, conducting outreach calls to veterans that are in the Sergeant Fox Suicide Prevention Program. Checking up on them, seeing how they're doing, seeing what they need, seeing how their mental health is, asking them, if they are dealing with any suicidal thoughts, and what we need to do about that. Um, so I do a lot of that, and then I do a lot of documenting around that, and a lot of chart auditing for the other individuals that work in the program with me. But you never know. Often I'll find myself out in the community, tabling at an event, conducting outreach with veterans. Sometimes I'm asked to do speaking engagements, or assist with community projects with other agencies in the community that we work with. So it can vary from day to day, honestly.
Makes sense. Um, what do you hope people truly understand about your role and where you fit into the larger mission of connecting veterans?
Um, one thing I have found myself saying more often and more often to the vets I work with is, vets very often tend to be stubborn, skeptical, and don't like asking for help. Um, and when they do, it's very often at the 11th hour when things are on fire. That's one thing. But if the concern is mental health, and potentially concerns about suicide, I mean, that's a whole other ballgame. And those types of supports and resources are incredibly important. And it's my job to make sure that through VBH that we have services in place to assist veterans and their family members, should that come to be, that they have somewhere they can go with someone that understands where they're coming from, that has military cultural competency, but also does understand the mental health system, both inside and outside of the VA.
Awesome. You already touched on this a bit, but can you take us back to your own transition out of the military? What did that moment feel like, and what was the hardest part that civilians do not always understand?
Yeah, that's a tough time for many service members, myself included. VBH really was founded on supporting veterans and their families through that transition. That's really where our mission started. And my transition was really no different. Again, I got out before I was ready to, because I had some health issues, and I had to just resume back at college and figure out what I'm going to do with my degree and my life and all those things. And you lose things that service members are accustomed to having, especially if they're active duty and this is their day in, day out life. They're used to having a mission, unit, a support, a team they can call on. All this gets, it's like a rug pulled out from under them when they leave the military. Really the structure of their life and even their identity is no longer there anymore. And it can be a difficult transition. And for me, I was pretty darn depressed. I had depression ever before I went into the military and didn't really realize it. And it definitely kind of compounded in my time there and was even worse when I got out. I did like a lot of veterans. I was stubborn, skeptical, and didn't ask for help, like I mentioned. I drank a lot for a couple of years, thinking that might kind of help. Sure didn't, but boy, did I try. Until I found, the things that service members need when they come out. I found, gainful work. I was able to refocus on school. I made sure that I had the right people around me supporting me. And with that, I was able to kind of figure out what direction I wanted to go from there. Because that directionless feeling, even with me still being a college student, I still feel very directionless. And that's a tough feeling, especially for a service member who's usually used to knowing what they got to do that day, the moment they wake up. So, and really VBH just continues that mission in terms of helping veterans and their families connect to the resources they need, whether it's employment, housing, friends, mental health support, what have you.
Makes sense. Last real question here. Can you share a story or a specific moment, and you don't have to go into details and compliance and everything like that, just a general, that sticks in your mind and illustrates the power of the Veterans Bridge Home Collective Impact Model?
Probably one of the best ones I can think of is one that I really can't take any credit for. It was one of our colleagues here. It was his case. We had a veteran who had essentially been living on the streets or out of a storage unit here in town for, I think, the better part of 7 years. Any efforts he had undertaken to try to get assistance, just things would never pan out for one reason or another. He worked on and off with us for probably at least the better part of a year, possibly a lot longer than that. He engaged with some of the programming we have. We connected him to other programming outside of VBH that could assist him. We got him on the HUD-VASH list. He ended up getting a HUD-VASH voucher. Went through the shelter system as we advised him to, in order to kind of get him on the radar for the greater housing efforts in our community. And in time, he was able to secure his own apartment, which he had not had in the better part of a decade. We were able to help him furnish that apartment, get him a bed, just get him the things you need to make a house a home, through one of the programs we have in conjunction with a couple of different organizations here in town. Actually, one helped with what we call a welcome home kit for newly sheltered veterans. It's about $200 to $300 worth of items, that mostly focusing on kitchen and bathroom. the things you need to make a house a home. That was through our partnership with Lake Norman Elks Lodge. They also, I believe, helped him get um, a mattress. And then we have another community partner um, that assisted with getting him essentially an apartment's worth of furniture, used furniture for very little money. So, we started working with this guy year and a half ago, homeless on the streets, living out of a storage unit. Anywhere he'd ever turned for assistance before in the course of those 7 years had failed for one reason or another. And in time, in his continued working with us and taking our advice and enrolling in certain programming, we were able to get his housing stabilized, get his income stabilized so he can afford his housing, help him get his home, um, up and running. And then we provided other supports along the way, be it, food, financial assistance, mental health assistance through my program. He really was open to taking advantage of what we could offer him. And I think part of the success is because he trusted us. We continued to work with him over time, honest, earnest, and just very straightforward with him about expectations, how long certain things are going to take. And I think that he saw that we would and did actually follow through on what we said we were going to do. And given time, his life is done a 180 from what it was over the last 7 years.
Yeah, and I do think I know who you're talking about. This isn't on here, but I definitely want to put it in. This is for this video project I'm producing with Emma. That's basically like an overview of what we do. Can you go into specifics, or like a general overview of how we connect to the Fox program, and then what the Fox program is?
Sure. So starting out, what the Fox program is, it's the Staff Sergeant Parker Gordon Fox Suicide Prevention Program. This is a suicide prevention initiative funded by the VA, where they are partnering with local organizations across the country who already have boots on the ground, working with veterans, doing suicide prevention work. And essentially it provides them a framework, a pathway, and funding in order to continue that work with improved coordination with the VA. What's really interesting is that given there are so many diverse communities across the country, that each Sergeant Fox program recipient agency really had a lot of freedom in terms of how they're designing their program to suit the needs of their community. So the way our program is structured is it is a 6-month-long veteran peer-driven case management program. So I tell veterans, we're not trying to replace your doctor or your therapist or anything like that. We are an additional layer to the onion and additional support. And over that course of 6 months, we learn more about the veteran, what's important to them, what their goals are, what they're working on, and we try to provide program and resource linkage over those 6 months to help them meet the goals that they've set for themselves. And we consider that upstream suicide prevention, because if we can help you connect to the resources you need to meet the goals you've set for yourself, well, generally suicide doesn't even really come into the question at that point. So, because the program is for veterans and their families, all of our care navigators are individuals that work in the program. All possess really good military cultural competency. They are either veterans themselves or veteran adjacent. And because there is such a strong mental health and suicide prevention focus on this program, all of our care navigators are actually mental health clinicians as well. So again, with my background, and then the other care navigators we have in the program right now are also social workers. So that is broadly how our program is structured. Qualifying, there's not much a lot of people really need to know other than, as it stands now, the individual service member, family member, or anyone actively serving, they have to be able to score on what's called a Columbia Suicide Screener, which is kind of a gold standard suicide screening tool in the mental health industry. As long as they score something on there, which indicates either maybe they are currently dealing with some suicidal thoughts, or maybe they've had some recent history of that, or maybe even a more remote history of a suicide attempt or something like that, more than likely they're going to qualify for the program. And administrative eligibility, of course, there are pieces of that as well, but we take care of all that. So, in terms of any individuals that might be interested in the program, VBH really has a no wrong door policy. So, however you are able to engage with us is the proper pathway. Whether you meet with one of our staff at a community event, or if you fill out an assistance request form on our website, or you call our phone number, there's really no wrong door. And all of our staff, all of our frontline staff that work with veterans, are trained how to do the Columbia, as well as an additional screener to screen people for the Sergeant Fox program. Because, anytime somebody comes to us for a request, we really have a philosophy of kind of doing a whole health screening and looking across all different kinds of social determinants of health in order to figure out, what are all of their needs. They may have an identified need, but likely there's, 1, 2, 3 needs behind that might be driving that. So we really want to work with them, get to know them, get to know what their needs are, and then do what we can to connect them to the right provider in the community or through our own programming, in the quickest amount of time possible. So there really is no wrong door.
Perfect. And then the last thing, and this I'm gonna stitch into like something with Emma that's it'll look really cool. You can take a couple seconds to think about this, but once you get it, just say it out loud. If you had to describe what Veterans Bridge Home means in just one word, what would you say?
Community. Community. Our motto is, stronger communities, one veteran at a time. And that really is what it's all about. Because again, our goal is to help veterans thrive where they live, work, and play. So the stronger we can make the veterans in our community, the stronger we can make our community. So that really is kind of, an overarching belief that we have here at VBH.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. I love to get my handshake. There you go. I can handle that.